I want to, on behalf of the People's Progressive Party, thank you for being here today. I know it's an inconvenient hour, and many of you had things to do, but you took the time to be here, and we really appreciate it. But we can put together a crowd like this at an inconvenient hour. I bet you Norton can't put this at a prime hour, at a peak hour. Norton cannot do that in Linden. A couple days ago, they had a launch in Georgetown. And they had 60 persons at the launch of their local government campaign in Georgetown. So at my press conference, I said that the Demerara Waves is acting like Jesus Christ. You know how Jesus multiplied the loaves? The Demerara moved the 60 to 250. But it was actually 60 persons of their own leadership. And many of them were not from the city. And their only message was cussing Jagdeo in their finale, not telling the residents of Georgetown what they're going to do for them. Historically, this has been their problem. They're obsessing about the PPP and can't focus on development. So Robson Ben said to you, take a leap of faith. And I think you should do that only in religion, because only God is infallible. You're dealing with political parties here, and therefore you should not take a leap of faith into supporting political parties. You have to listen to what they say, believe in what they say, hear evidence of what they've done before you make that decision. And today I'm here to do the comparisons and to show you the evidence that Guyana and communities have moved forward only when the People's Progressive Party has been in power. And I'll take you through that record, because I want you, when you walk the grounds, and these are the people that we brought here that we expect to lead the campaign in this community. We expect you in a humble manner to go to every single home, not once, but twice, before the local government elections. We expect you to talk to people, to carry these flyers out that make the promises on your behalf. And people would want to believe that what's written in these flyers, and you have to convince them that this party will keep its word. It will do what we are promising to the people of this region. But to do that, you have to be equipped with the facts. Because the last thing you want when you walk the ground is to hear someone raise a question. And they raise lots of questions because people in these communities have been fed a history of lies about the PPP. And often that has found resonance in many years. It has caused a mindset in many people to shut out anything that the People's Progressive Party would say, because they spread rumors. You hear them now again. Oh, the PPP is a racist party. The PPP will take away the free electricity here from the people of Linden. The PPP will remove vendors from the street. We'll divert the road from Brazil to another area so the traffic wouldn't pass through Linden. A ton of rumors over the years people have heard about the PPP. And so when someone raises these things, how are you going to respond to them? How are you going to campaign if you yourselves have not followed what has happened in the history of this country? So today, in an evidence-based way, I'm here to equip you basically with what has happened so that you can be better advocates for this party. So let's look at the history of our country. I've done this many times. In the 1960s, in 1950, the first political party was formed, the PPP. And we led the struggle for universal adult suffrage. It was under the PPP that everyone got the right to vote who was 18 years and above. Prior to that, under colonial rule, guess what happened? Only people who were literate or had property could have voted in this country. It was the PPP that led the struggle for universal adult suffrage. It was a PPP that brought Burnham back from abroad to join the party to ensure that we work together for independence of our country. We led that struggle. The elections were rigged in the 60s. And what happened when APNU took over in the 60s? If you go back to our history, you look at the development of Guyana. Guyana was considered the Singapore of the Caribbean, one of the most advanced economies in the Caribbean in the 60s. By 1992, we became the poorest country in the hemisphere, on par with Haiti. We saw 3 decades of decumulation of wealth, not accumulation of wealth, decumulation of wealth. And you don't have to believe me. You look at public servant salaries at that time, in 1992 when the PPP took over. The minimum wage was 3,000 Ghana dollars. You can verify this. The exchange rate at that time was 125 to 1. It meant you were working at like for 25 US dollars a month. That was what public servants, many of them were working for. They pauperized the entire public service and claimed they love Afro-Guyanese, but Afro-Guyanese were the predominant group in the public service. Totally pauperized the public service, if you go back into history. Our country was bankrupt. The IMF declared us ineligible to borrow. We had the highest debt per capita debt in the world. Our debt was 9 times the size of our economy. We were using over 100% of revenue to service debt. The whole infrastructure across Guyana was in a sad shape. So I'm not going to spend much time at this, but that was the state of our country in 1992. And this was after nearly 30 years of APNU leadership. In the bauxite industry, President Hoyt had hired a firm called Minproc here in Linden to either restructure or shut down the bauxite industry. They took a decision to close the bauxite industry. And I want all of you to just go back and check this. Don't just believe in what I'm saying, but you can easily Google it and you can find the history of this country. Bauxite was going to be shut down in Linden. That was the history. So after almost 3 decades of rule, Guyana became poorer, not wealthier. That was their track record. Contrast that with 23 years under the PPP. We removed the debt burden. We paid off most of the debt. Our debt to GDP ratio was one of the lowest in the world. We became the most dynamic economy in the Caribbean. And this was all before we found oil. We started rebuilding the infrastructure. Here in Linden, there were lots of things that happened, but I'm going to come to that in a short while. So right across, we changed the dynamics. We started investing in roads and in schools and in hospitals and a whole range of things again. So our track record is a track record that we can run on. And then 5 years of APNU again. And what happened? In spite of all the promises that they made, if you go to their manifesto, they kept none of those promises. Not a single one. They promised more jobs, we lost jobs. They promised less taxes, we got more than 200 taxes. They promised housing, they didn't do anything in the housing sector. They promised to fight corruption, they became the most corrupt group. That is what. They promised plans for development, they had absolutely no plan. The oil and gas industry that we left because they found oil before APNU got into office, they made a mess of it, and in 2016 signed a contract that they hid from the people of this country that is so lopsided that today you hear about it every day in the newspapers. That gave most of the benefits to the investors and very little to us, and it was a contract signed in 2016. They did absolutely nothing. Here in Linden, you know about that. So they had 3 decades, we got poorer. They had 5 years, and we got poorer again. And that is why I'm saying, track record-wise, when you compare the track records of this party, the two parties, you will see every time the PPP has been in office, our country has moved forward. But let me tell you specifically, because I don't want to go back to distant past. That's all history. Robeson Ben said that I will give you the criminal history of the PNC. I don't want to do that today. That's all past. Let's go back to things that we remember. Let's just, when you campaign, because people will remember a few things. So, on housing here in Linden, since we're campaigning in Linden, so in the PPP era, I remember coming here, and at Amelia's ward, there wasn't any home there. There wasn't a housing scheme when I was president. Walking there on that, those were bauxite lands. And that scheme was built under the PPP and Block 22, both of them. I remember starting those schemes. Today you have thousands of homes there. So what did APNU do for housing in the period? How many people got land in this region? A few of them got land that Winston Jordan, if you check the official gazette, after they lost the elections, hurriedly transfer lands to a few PNC top leaders and people who were close to them. Lowenfield, in that period, the chief elections officer, who was central to the rigging plot, he got 216 acres here in Linden. You can do 5 house lots on 200 per acre. On 200 acres alone, you can do 1,000 house lots. They preferred to give it to one person. But they didn't see it fit to get land to ordinary people. We came into office, what was the difference? Immediately, we started expanding another 400 plots of land at Amelia's ward in phase 4. And over $400 million would be spent on that. We started developing, we made a promise to do 1,000 houses for poor people in this region. And we started grading the land, then they said it's a bauxite reserve. So now we had to shift the area, and that's happening. By the end of this term, you would have nearly 1,600 persons, because we're developing more areas, 1,600 persons, 1,600 persons now from this area having a plot of land. When under APNU, just a few got it, and the big people. That's the difference between the two political parties. We need to talk facts. So all that Sharma Solomon and Vanessa Kisoon would say, or the regional chairman, they can't deal with facts because they couldn't help themselves in the 5 years under APNU. How can they help you and the people in this region? What message can they bring to the Lindeners? They couldn't help themselves. They were shut out from everything, all the development plans. When they were the ones who led the people astray in 2015, saying that they're going to tackle housing and they're going to deal with young people and bring jobs to Linden. Let's talk about jobs now. When I was president again, that call center was built here. I came here, we had an area study done. We got a $12 million US grant because of the area study. I led this. This was as finance minister. We went into Victory Valley, West Watuka. There was no road there, etc. years ago. We established the LEAF program with an incubator for business. We established LENS, a small loan program, and people started getting assistance. We built the road into West Watuka to open up agriculture. So we started working there, a job creation. We built a call center. 80-something persons were working in the call center. What happened under APNU? One, they shut down the call center. A few months after they got into office, people lost their jobs. That's the jobs that they were bringing to Linden. The LENS program, the small loan program, Valerie Patterson was the CEO. When she became minister, she diverted a lot of the loans into the purposes not intended under the loan scheme. Until now, we're struggling to reconcile that. Took a good thing, a facility that should have helped the people of Linden to incubate small businesses and divert it into other areas. And many PNC top dogs got a lot of the money there too. Practically destroy LENS. That is their track record on housing and on jobs. Nothing practically. We lost jobs in Linden. We lost jobs across the country. Look at what happened in the mining sector. They promised that within 100 days of taking office, if you read their manifesto, they will remove all the taxes on mining. What did they do? They increased 3 taxes on the miners. The tributers tax, the royalty rate, and they put a value-added tax on machinery and equipment. We lost about 15,000 jobs in mining. Here in Region 10, when in the forestry sector, we had worked with the people to create a community forestry grant. Over 500 persons were benefiting from this, cutting their logs, selling it to buy Shanlin. That was killed off too under the APNU period. Hundreds of people lost their jobs in the region in the forestry sector. Our forestry output, that is production, fell by half from 2015 to 2020. That is what happened on the job front. So when we got into office, we said, how are we going to generate more jobs? We decided on the part-time program. APNU said, we don't want part-time jobs. We want full-time jobs. Imagine the audacity of a party that was in power for 5 years, created 0 jobs, and then criticizing you for giving 1,200 persons a job now, even if it is a part-time job, whilst we're working to create more full-time jobs in the community. We rehabilitated the call center, and now it started working again. We're expanding agriculture. A number of contracts have been given to people to do cleaning and all of that so that they can then get more work in the community in this area. Generating jobs, but they generated 0, but they got a lot of long talk about what the PPP is doing in the area. So that's on jobs. Let's talk about the infrastructure. This year alone, we have spent about $2.5 billion so far on roads. They've never had more roads done in the history than in the last couple of years. And this year's budget alone for roads in Linden is more than the 5 years that APNU budgeted in the past. And we made a decision that once it's concrete roads, that only contractors from this region will get the work to build the roads in this region. That's the difference. We just concluded a loan since we got into office to pave the Linden-Soesdijk Highway. It's $200 million US. And before the end of this year, we are now on the verge of contracting the company. We have to advertise to contract a company to build the road. But before the end of this year, you will see the project started from the Soesdijk Junction right into Linden would be paved. Coming here. We are now considering offers to build a 4-lane bridge across the river here in Linden. And we're hoping that that too can start before the end of the year. APNU did a study for a 2-lane bridge, and they do lots of studies because, like Patterson did a study for a 3-lane bridge across the Demerara River, and the bridge would have opened, and then the bridge took a turn to go and fall on Stanley Ming's land. So, because Stanley Ming was supporting them, the bridge had a twist to go onto Stanley Ming's land. Now he's charged for that project and before the court, because what happened, you can't take an unsolicited bid to the cabinet. When I was president, I removed the cabinet from awarding contracts. They only have a no objection role now. But he took an unsolicited bid directly to the cabinet, got the approval, and then started the project and took the money from the Demerara Harbor Bridge. So he's before the courts now for that. Oh, bracelet. You got a man in this region who's similar to Patterson, Adiron Adams. Yeah. He's very similar to Patterson. I see him talking a lot, but he got a lot of skeletons in the cupboard. All right, so I'm going to deal with him a little bit later too, because they talk a lot. Only they talk nonsense. Yeah. So the thing is that this is what happened. That's not a bridge like that. It wouldn't turn around, it goes straight across the river here. Right? And it's a 4-lane bridge too. We are now we started building a 4-lane bridge right across the Demerara River too. That will make a big difference to those communities in that area, so you don't have to open up bridge anymore. And we're doing it in a way that would allow vessels, because it's a high bridge, vessels you don't have to open up all the time, so you can come all the way, the big vessels can come all the way to Linden. And we're talking about land too. I forgot to mention that at Dalawala Creek, we were keeping that land for an industrial estate. Guess who got some of the land? A guy who was working at Office of the President in the last 5 years. His name is Bristol. They gave him 12 acres of land at Dalawala Creek. I don't think he even knows where Dalawala is. But now the people of Linden, and you can check this, verify it, because he is a PNC bigwig. And so let me come to this point, that they terminated 7,000 sugar workers who are mainly Indo-Guyanese. But these were poor people. But they were hobnobbing with a few rich Indian people. They were tight with them. They were getting the contracts. So the poor Indians in the sugar industry, they lost their jobs, they couldn't feed their children, etc. The same thing happened with Amerindians. Poor Amerindians, 1,972 lost their jobs in the first year of when PNC was in office, APNU was in office. So those people couldn't feed their families again, but then they gave one Amerindian, a guy named Vincent Henry, $145 million under the SLED program to distribute to Amerindian villages. He got more money than all the Amerindian villages in Region 9. Because he's big again and he's connected. Same thing with Afro-Guyanese. Poor Afro-Guyanese, as I demonstrated, couldn't get no help. It was the ones who were connected. They couldn't get housing, they couldn't get scholarships, they couldn't get anything. But the big ones were getting. So PNC, APNU, operated for the elite in this country. They were never concerned for a single moment about poor people. They were never for a single moment. So don't let them push this argument because they put race argument. That's the only thing that they can do. They don't have a track record, so they whisper in the corners of Linden. I heard the Solomon Sharman. He goes under the hill and whisper to people, oh, this is a Kuli people party and all kind of things like that. They can only do that because they have no history of achievement. But they don't care about ordinary Afro-Guyanese too, as you can see in their actions. And a party has to be judged by its policies and its actions when it is in office. Not by its rhetoric, not by what it puts on paper in a manifesto, but by its real action. So let's come back to Linden again. I said to you about roads, that we're building more on roads, the bridges. There are 48 bridges between Linden and the border. We are awarding, all 48 have been awarded to build concrete bridges so that trucks can come from Brazil using the road, the Linden-Letem Road, passing through Linden, not diverting the traffic from Linden as they claim that the PPP will move it to Berbice, but coming through Linden over a 4-lane road, going down to Georgetown and maybe then branching off and going off to Berbice, so that here could be a central area for development. And 45 of those bridges have already been, 48 have been awarded. Now there are three that are part of the Mabura stretch, so 48 bridges, except in the Kurupukari. The Kurupukari is the only remaining bridge that we'll have to do. Then you can drive all the trucks and come through here. So Linden would be central in that. The business would flow through this community here, and you'd have good infrastructure. We plan to spend $30 million on rehabilitating the hospital, equipping it with the best facilities and expanding it, so that you would see an expansion of the hospitals in this area. So there are lots of things practical things, real things that we can do. On scholarships, you have more people. The last government gave out less than 1,000 scholarships in the 5 years. And guess who got these scholarships? Ministers' children. I don't like calling people's name, but sometimes you have to do. Now, Simona Brooms, her children got scholarships. We found out, we didn't know because they're not Guyana scholars. Over $30 million was given to scholarships to our children. When you check ordinary people, they couldn't get a single scholarship. We promised 20,000 scholarships through the Gold Program. Already 13,000 people are on scholarships. I've sent, they terminated Professor Opedere, who was a Nigerian national who was running the University of Guyana. We brought him back and put him in charge of that program. And today I came here some time ago when I launched the part-time work program for people. And I said to them, anyone who wants to study in this region, the government will pay for your scholarship through an online program. Because we want our people to be educated. We're already pushing the people in Georgetown and other areas to start recruiting labor from Linden or welders. We need maybe 700 welders who can earn $2,000 a month. We have to train our people because there are huge labor shortages in Region 4. People would have to, with the road better, you can have easy mobility down to Georgetown to work and then come back home. There are lots of other opportunities that I'm not going to talk about now. But if you get the tenor of what I'm talking about, it is that we have practical things that we can campaign on. We're a party that keeps its word. And let me demonstrate how we, on some of the things that we kept our word on. So as I said before, APNU promised to reduce taxes in 2015. They increased the taxes, nearly 200. They put VAT on machinery and equipment. So any sector, machinery and equipment, you had to pay a 14% tax. On hinterland travel, on food items, on education, health services, on water, on electricity, all had the value-added tax. We promised to remove those. The first year in office, the first budget we passed, we removed most of those taxes. We kept our promise to people. As a result of which, the miners now, if you look at what they've said, we removed the tributous tax completely. We reduced the royalty rate. We removed the value-added tax on machinery and equipment. We've seen more live bread in the industry today. We did the same for agriculture. We removed the taxes on pesticides, on fertilizer, on a whole range of things. Now agriculture has started to breed again. And so we kept our promise there. Recall, they took away the 10,000 grant from the school kids. And you know, it was such a callous thing to do, a sad thing to do, when a political party that had billions of dollars at its disposal, because when they came into office, we left a huge reserve at the central bank. They had a massive amount of money. They had a good revenue stream. They started collecting more in taxes. They borrowed about $100 billion from the central bank. And guess what? They couldn't see it fit to keep the grant to the children. They said they couldn't afford it. So why we said, how is it that you're going to increase dietary, that is food in government, by more than 1.6 billion, and you can't give the children the $10,000 each? We had 167,000 children at that time in public schools. So multiply by 10, that's $1.67 billion. They said they couldn't afford it. But they were affording, let me tell you what they could have afforded. The first 6 months in office, they increased ministers' salary by 50 to 100%. They then, that was never there under the PPP. In fact, they were saying we were earning super salary in 2015. And on the super salary, they increased it by 50 to 100%, right? That was the duplicity. Secondly, the health care in Guyana was not good enough for the ministers and their children. So then the government started a private health care system for ministers and their families, and the government was supposed to pay half of the premium, the insurance premium. Well, the government ended up paying all of it because they never contributed the other half. So when they were doing their checkups, they had to go to Ireland and other places, the ministers and their families. That's where the money went. Fancy vehicles. Granger is still driving. We left him with it because we said, good riddance. Good riddance. He's still driving the most expensive vehicle that this country ever bought, a fancy Lexus over $35 million it cost. That's where the money was going. They were renting buildings from their friends and family, $1 billion more in rental over the 2015 level. You recall the drug bond. A man was renting a house to them, a bottom house basically, for $12.5 million a month. Right. And so this is what was happening. But they could not find the $10,000 to give it to our children. And it didn't go to PPP children alone. It went to all the children of Guyana. So what did we say? We said before, when we were campaigning in 2020, we said we will restore this grant and we will increase it to $50,000 per child in the 5 years. We're not at the end of the 5 years as yet, and this year you're going to get $40,000 for every child. Do you know how much it's costing? It's costing $8.6 billion, but we don't begrudge our children and their parents. They're going to get $8.6 billion more than APNU wasn't giving them, that took away. Now, guess what happened? If you take $1.6 billion per year for the 10,000 and multiply it by 5 years, you will get over $8 billion. So you can buy on $8 billion over 1,000 buses. Granger got a couple of old buses and he replaced that and put his name on it and said, this is how I love the children. I'm going to give them the couple of buses. But you took away $8 billion in the 5 years from them, from the 1.6. Now, in 1 year, they're going to get $8.6 billion in a single year. But that's how much you love our children. When you see Sharma Solomon and their teachers, right? He and Vanessa Kisoon, ask them about that. Ask them about that, how y'all steal from the children. That's your government. And you're coming back to lie once again to the people with false promises every single time. So that's one thing, we did it. They took away their 1 month tax-free salary from the joint services. They said the PPP was bribing our policemen, our soldiers, our firemen and prison officers by giving them a 1 month tax-free salary at the end of tax-free salary at the end of the year. So we're not bribing the policemen and the soldiers. We are recognizing they do a difficult job. And so we restore that. We promised we'll restore it. We did it. We did it. You can trust us to do what we say we will do. Then the pensioners. They said they would double old age pension within 100 days. They will double old age pension. Well, I didn't see any doubling. In fact, in the coastal area, we had pensioners used to get free water. They took away the free water from the pensioners. They couldn't afford that too, but they could have avoided all. The ministers' salary increases alone could have paid for the water subsidy for all the pensioners in this country, but they preferred to give it to themselves and not the pensioners. That was their priority. So we restored the free water to the pensioners, and we said, we're not going to double your pension in 1 year and lie to you, but we'll do it in 5 years. And by 2025, the pension will be double for all of those who were eligible. It was $20,000 in 2020. It will be $40,000 in 2025. So we promised scholarships. We started delivering on it. We promised free university education, and before the end of our term, we're going to make sure that that is also delivered to the people of this country. We promised 50,000 house lots, and we are now busy preparing this all around the country. So if you look at, I can go down a long list of promises that we made only in 2020. And in spite of COVID, we had a year and a half after we got through. First, we had to battle to make sure that the will of the people of the country was respected. They tried to steal the elections, and that's now confirmed by the Caribbean Court of Justice. They have a bad track record on respecting the Constitution of Guyana too. When you talk about law and order, the APNU never respects the Constitution of this country. One, when they unilaterally appointed the chair of GCOM, 25 years, that provision was in our Constitution. The two parties respected it. Desmond Hoyt and I sat down and hammered out how we'd approach it. They respected it. Granger came into office. He said, forget the Constitution, forget everything else. Unilaterally appointed Patterson. We had to go all the way to the Caribbean Court of Justice and had it reversed. They then tried to unilaterally change, and now they talk about voters list. Oh, the voters list is padded, etc. That's their mantra all the time. There's never been an election when APNU has not complained about the voters list. They're preparing the ground so that when they get defeated massively so in these elections, they will then have an excuse, you know, oh, the list was bad, this was happening, etc., that was happening. And by the way, talking about that, this is the only political party that has out of government and in government been able to contest in all the 80 local government areas. In 2018, we contested in every local government area where an election was held in this country and we were in opposition. They were in government and they couldn't do that. And these elections, we have contested every single constituency in the country, not just the local government areas. APNU, even before the elections, they're now contesting in 25 of the 80 and over 300 of the 610 constituencies. Before the elections are held, we have won nearly 300 of the 610 constituencies across the country because nobody else is contesting there. That's our track record. That's our track record. So they know what is staring at them. And Norton has a big challenge to his leadership. He has a big challenge to the leadership because, frankly speaking, he's a disaster. He's a disaster, total disaster. I see the man dancing in Linden and he mouth sour. Y'all see that video? Must play the video for people. The man, he can't be smile about anything, you know. You got life to live too, you're at a party. Enjoy yourself for a moment, you know. You gotta be sour with all the people there and stuff. Yeah. So, the thing is, he has big problems internally because they have major battles. And what is shocking them is that the PPP now, people have seen. I keep saying the best thing that could have happened for the PPP, the worst thing for the country, but the best thing for the PPP was us losing the elections in 2015. Because people saw APNU for their true nature. People then see what they were saying. All of these promises before 2015, they were the most competent, the least corrupt, they had a plan for everything. Truckman, Ramjata, and Granger putting on Green State strategy. Nonsense. Zero. We saw the results of all of it. Nothing. They were clueless. They couldn't manage a basic thing, much less an economy. And so we all saw it. And that's the best thing that could have happened for the PPP, because now people understand what we've been saying all of our lives, that you have to come to this party to make progress, and we welcome every single body in this party. We have always, in spite of what they said about race, you look at our policies. They spread rumors, and you know of some of the rumors. Some of my colleagues fell prey to the rumors too just here. They used to say at Freedom House, we had trapdoors to black people. If they come in there, they would fall in the trapdoors. We'd kill them in Freedom House. Julian Burton said that to me one time, that I was told that you all have a torture room upstairs. That's the rumors they spread, because they do it in the corner and the bottom houses. Well, it's not working anymore, because people are sensible. They know that all this is to prevent people. So on nomination day, they were scared. They were running all over the place asking about red jerseys. So they sent Adam Harris up here to say, did you see any red jerseys on the street? He asked the regional chairman and Solomon. And they said, yeah, there were a couple of them there and stuff like that. They were worried, extremely worried, because this party and its supporters look like the country. We've made it clear that we are working for all the people in the party that I am General Secretary of, from independence to now. We fight for Guyana, we fight for poor people, we fight for all of our people regardless of race and their religion, and we're committed by policy to ensure that their lives improve. We had a tough time managing this country. We had to overcome a massive legacy of mismanagement where they destroyed the basics. When we got into office, I remember I was in finance. We couldn't find $20,000 to pay our debts. We couldn't find money to buy drugs to the hospital. Everything. The debt payment and wages and salary was more than all of the revenue. Those were tough, tough days. And we kept faith. We persevered. We remained steadfast. We worked year by year, adding a little bit more to our economy. And today, you see, we're the envy of the world. If you Google now which is the fastest growing economy in the world, do that now and you will see it's Guyana in the world today. And we have a bright future. We have an extremely bright future if we remain steadfast. You have competent people. They made a mess of the oil and gas industry. Since we got into office, we have now reformed the Natural Resources Fund Act. You recall the 18 million signing bonus that APNU received from Exxon. So the country didn't know about this. Nobody knew about it until a year after. And when Jordan was asked, the Minister of Finance, he said, we did not request nor did we receive any signing bonus. We later found out that wasn't true, that they had received the 18 million US and put it into a special account. Now, under the laws and the Constitution of Guyana, you can only keep public funds in 3 places: the consolidated fund, a deposit fund, but you have to notify the parliament, or a fund created by special legislation. They kept it out of those 3 pots. And then they kept it out of the balance sheet of the central bank. So for all purposes, this money didn't exist because it couldn't be audited. So when we filed a court case, and they were forced to bring back the money and put it into the consolidated fund. And then when Jordan was pressed on it, he said he thought it was a gift. You must look at the ad. We did an ad for the 2020 elections. One of y'all must play it back at Lorma or Akani. And you will see, he said he thought it was a gift, the 18 million US. So we said this is never going to happen again in Guyana. We promised in the pre-election period, we said we'd criminalize non-disclosure. So what did we do? As soon as we got in, we reformed the Natural Resources Fund Act. We now say the Minister of Finance now has to publish every receipt from any oil company into the Natural Resources Fund, big or small. If he receives $5, he has to publish it. Or you receive $100 million, he has to publish it. He has to do so within 3 months of the receipt. He has to notify the parliament too. And if he fails to do that, there's a 10 years jail term for the Minister of Finance. That is how serious we are. So every citizen of this country will know how much money we are collecting from the oil and gas companies every year. We've seen many countries that hide the money, like what APNU was trying to do, and now they're poorer. Although they produce oil, they're poorer than when they started producing oil. Look at Venezuela. Venezuela can't feed its citizens now, and Venezuela was producing 3 million barrels of oil per day. So we're serious about that. We're serious. It's formula-based. To withdraw, and every cent before it's spent has to be debated by the parliament. That is how serious we are. We then passed a local content law. We passed a local content law, which now, because when we're in opposition, we saw we were pressing APNU to defend our people, and they were not. We said, how is it that you would allow these people, the oil companies, to bring plants from abroad to do landscaping, hiring landscapers from abroad, buying water from California and bringing it here? Hertz, the American car company, came here and they were hiring that car company. We said, are we not capable of doing these things ourselves? So we passed a law now, a tough law. The oil companies didn't want it. They said, oh, if you do this, we'll shut down. So we said, fine, go ahead. And we passed it, and they have to live with it. And now there's a special carve-out. They can only rent buildings from Guyanese. They can only rent transportation from Guyanese. The security services are Guyanese. Cleaning services are Guyanese. 40 areas only for Guyanese, if you're a Guyanese national. A lot of those people from abroad who migrated for years didn't want their passports. Now they're hustling to get a Guyanese passport to come back here because they can supply goods and services to the oil and gas companies. That's how we have changed it. We have changed the royalty rate that APNU set at 2% to 10% now. The zero income tax to 10% income tax. We have reduced the amount set aside for cost recovery to 65%. So that more will come to Guyana, because we are a capable party. We're a capable party that is not compromised. So when you talk about stewardship of the economy and the future, and we decided that the oil and gas money will be spent on world-class education, healthcare, infrastructure, job creation for our people, and we'll save a large amount for the future, for future generations. That's how we are approaching this. So we are a capable party. When they asked us at the press conference, I said to people, I will resign from the position as General Secretary of the party and Vice President. If you can show me in 5 years, Granger and Trotman, who were responsible for the oil industry, if they gave more policy answers than I do at a single press conference, one press conference, I've given more answers on the oil and gas industry policy-wise than they have done in 5 years. And I was prepared to stake my entire career at this, because we know where we want to go. Let me tell you about the green state economy, how incompetent we are. We left. The low carbon development strategy was one of the first in the world. We earned over 200 million US dollars. APNU was opposed to it. We left the money with them. So they had the money to spend. They spent it on everything, giving grants to themselves and families. Granger took some of the money to develop a green state strategy. That was a liability. We got back into office. We said this approach is untenable. We have to make this an asset. We got our credits certified. We have already sold 30% of our credits for $700 million at a minimum. We'll get about 2.5 billion US dollars out of that, and that will come for development in Guyana for our people. The Amerindian communities, all of them are going to get 15% of this, which will make a huge difference in their lives. I'm telling you all of these things because at every single level, At the national level, they demonstrated a lack of competence compared to the PPP. The venality or the corruption. You know, in 1999, the Integrity Commission Act was passed when I was president. That means every year the president and ministers must submit a statement to the Integrity Commission. How much assets you own and your income. So assuming you earn 30 million Ghana dollars for the year, but you buy a property for 200 million, then you have to explain it. And if you fail to submit, or you submit false information, you can go to jail for a year. That's a penalty. We passed that when I was president. Now, from 2000 to 2015, every year, the ministers and others submitted their statements. APNU came into office. For 3 years, they refused to submit any statement. It's the only gap that we've had in 23 years, the first 3 years of APNU. And they did not want to establish a baseline. That is the kind of corruption we saw, massive amounts of corruption. And this is, even on those issues, they will never debate us. They will never have a fact-based debate on these issues. So today, I'm giving you all of this info. So when you walk on the road and people say something about, oh, this is a racist party, you can point out our leadership. Our leadership. You look at the People's Progressive Party leadership, you will see that we have Afro-Ghanese in our leadership. Look at the central government. You have three of the most powerful ministers here are Afro-Ghanese. Home Affairs, Foreign Affairs, and Public Works. Three of the most powerful with the biggest budgets. And they're just here. There are many others. That's how we operate. It's not tokenism. If you look at our policies, all the children of Guyana will get the grant, not Indo-Guyanese children alone. If you look at our housing program, it's for all of our people. The scholarship program, it's all of our people. The policies determine the party, not what you talk, how you look. Often people look at that. But you have a party that could mislead people, and that is why they believe they're critical of so many people who crossed us, calling them all sorts of names, because they have nothing else to do. How can you convince people that they and their families would have an improved life under your administration? What could this town council do any different than they're doing now? What could they do any different? More of the same you will get. More venality, more corruption, more lack of focus. That's all you'll get from them. It's the same old people again. Well, let's get a chance here to prove ourselves what we have done nationally. Let's get a chance in the town to prove that we can do that. Give us this time. You control this place since independence, 57 years ago. You control Linden. Give us a chance now, one time, to show what we can do for the residents of the people here. And that's the argument. We've done it at the national level, and we'll do it here too. Because you need a council that is like-minded, one that does not sabotage development. Because that's what they will do. If you give them money for one thing in Georgetown, they spend it on something else. You can't pass large sums of money in the city to them. Now in a council's responsibilities are the internal roads. But just imagine if we were not from the central government doing the roads in the city or elsewhere, how our country would have been. And this is why they see this massive momentum coming to the PPP. So I believe today, I've been talking for a long time, let me see. Yeah, sometimes I get going, I need to give me a coffee too, yeah. I didn't see it, yeah, so. My brother Norton is begging that I don't speak too much. He say, this man Jagdeo talk too much. Why you gotta talk after me on Thursday at my press conference and all of that? But Norton, when I talk, people listen. When he talks, nobody pays attention to him. If I had his kind of response, I'd stop talking. So he begs all the time. And listen, that's what we're about. We're not in confrontation with PNC. A lot of PNC people heard a lot of things in the past about us, etc. We are a party that embraces people. When you become part of this family, you will see the loyalty we have to our people. You know that around the country. And it's not a loyalty based on race. It's a loyalty based on commonness of purpose, that we work to develop our communities and our country. You're going to learn more and more about us as you come closer. We're not going to confront people. When we go there, we take our message to every home, even the most hostile home, because we have a message to take. Look at our flyer. We have a message to take. What are they going to take to people? What are they going to say to people in their home? Oh, we're not going to collect your garbage anymore, or we collect it anymore. Who would believe them? Who would believe this town council? Who could believe a Sharma Solomon anymore? This guy should be ashamed of lying to the people in this region all his life. If he had any integrity, he would say to people, I've done an assessment, and that party, the PNC APNU, can't help anybody here any longer. And he would urge, instead of disparaging and running down people who are coming to us, he should respect their decision. In Barbara Pilgrim's case, Barbara Pilgrim in New Amsterdam grew up in the PNC all her lives. She was a PNC member of parliament recently. And she decided to campaign with us now. And Norton said she's prostituting herself. Imagine this pig. Yes. He talks about that, a woman like that. And all these human rights bodies don't say a word. You let a PPP person say that. They run down, jump down. We're the women organization now. Because she chooses to exercise her constitutional right freely to choose whom she wants to associate it with. And he says she's prostituting herself. People want betterment for themselves and their children. And they want a good future for our country. And if you can't deliver it, then they have to explore an organization that will work with them for that future. That is what's happening in this country. And the crossover, which I welcome, for a long time in the party, we've been trying to get more people to come to the party because we're strong in the Indian communities, we're strong in the Amerindian communities, but we have been weaker in the Afro-Guyanese communities, and we're trying, not for want of trying, but the people are kept away because of rumors. But now you are helping to break this stereotype. You're helping to break this stereotype that you can find a home in the People's Progressive Party that is strong and that can work for all of Guyana. And that is shocking them, because the moment this happens, they have no future again. In 2025, I know we will win those elections. Actually, 2025 will be easier than winning Linden. but as Agil said, we're giving it a shot. We're giving it a strong shot and we're campaigning hard in Linden, New Amsterdam, Georgetown. It's tough because it's APNU's stronghold. But I know that they're scared. I know they're scared. As I said at my press conference, when the leader of the opposition starts off his rally in Georgetown by saying, we will win in Georgetown, I'm thinking, this is like me going to Port Morant, Barbies, and saying we will win here. It should be a foregone conclusion. But now he's so scared, he has to reassure himself. It was a kind of self-reassurance. He's scared. And so here too, here in this community, they're scared. And we must make them even more scared by going out as teams. Give a little bit of your time. That's why I didn't want to do a big rally as yet. I wanted to talk to you one-on-one here today to make sure that you join the campaign. If you've not been given all of your effort, go out with the guys. I see the photos of many people walking the ground, going to homes. I really appreciate that. That's the kind of work that wins elections. But for the others who have been busy, we only have about 4 weeks more. Give a bit of your time in the afternoon. Join the teams. Take the message out. You have a mission here. And that's why I'm meeting you like this here. Because at rallies and stuff, you don't get to talk to people heart to heart. And I came here largely to give you the message about what? You've seen it on the flyer, but we are about development. We'll fight racism wherever it happens. You're welcome, those who are coming to the party. I want to look you in your face and say, you're welcome in the People's Progressive Party. So today, this is, it's when we go back, they're going to have another bout of unease in Georgetown. In fact, a couple of them are already worried. I saw them posting things on their way up about me. And now they hate us pathologically. I saw, again, they talk about killing, the PPP killed 400 young, that's another rumor you will hear. I heard them mentioning it. The PPP killed 400 young Afro-Guyanese youths. They use that a lot. Well, you should go, please do one thing. Check the Starbuck News expose. Starbuck News did something a few years ago. They listed the 400 names and they showed how they died. Now, many of them, about 75 are Indo-Guyanese of the 400 names. Some were victims of the criminals, some were the criminals, some were the policemen. And on nomination day, I met a man in Georgetown whose name was on the dead list 5 years ago from APNU. He was alive and supporting the PPP. But so, please look at this. They thrive on this sort of rumor peddling. And don't let those things dissuade you. If they're aggressive, don't confront them physically. But if they harm you, you let me know. I set up a special hotline for that. You call to that hotline and we will deal with them. Any attempt to harm people, etc. I saw Norton issuing veiled threats. And we have had to deal with much more than Lilliputian Norton. This Lilliputian Norton, don't worry about him. Yeah, pathetic when he speaks. It's all about history and racism. I want them to come and talk to the people of Linden the same way, with credibility, but they will never do that. So today, thank you again for being here. I really appreciate this. You now have the message. If there is anything you want to raise with me today, don't bring me the water and the electricity and that. We'll deal with that after. But anything when you go out and campaign, what you are faced with and what you need answers for. If you need answers for anything that questions what people ask you when you go to their community, raise that today. We have a lot of work being done in the city. The contracts and the roads and everything will be fixed a little bit later, but I want to give you a chance today so that you can get a chance to interact with me before you go out and launch a campaign. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Come on, we could do better than that. Give a big round of applause to the General Secretary. All right. After such a good teaching, you just get homework. So here was the homework. Go to the page that says Vice President Bharrat Jagdeo and share the entire presentation with all your contacts. Would you do that? And while you will get a chance to hear it a second time, because I came out and I take a peep to see what was going on with the live and who was listening. And they were listening. You see, you gotta be smart, you know, you gotta be strategic. So I want you to do that.
Personal problem. I don't want to rush off too. So I'm going to have two of my staff wait. After this is over, if you have any personal problems, sometimes people have problems with their birth certificates and other things. The last time I came to Linden, we had a long list of problems. We worked through some of them. We have not got through all of them. But give your name and number to my staff so we can then call you back and leisurely record the grievance. So you don't have to rush off without your matters being heard. Please give your name. Let them set up a little table at the back there so people can give your name and number. So if any problem you have of a personal nature, you can do so. And then for the comrades from Kwakwani, I'll talk to you separately because I focus a lot on this area, okay? I'll talk to you separately. Thank you.